want to be an assessor.
Hello. Kaitlyn and I are back at our respective residences this week and recording from here, which is not together, right? So anyway, we are not having to travel this week, and so we're enjoying the ability to do this virtual meetup thing.
Yes, I have really loved all these digital meeting devices and the Zoom, the Meets, the whatever other ones, Teams, I think is the other really popular one. Makes life so much easier, especially when you're doing a virtual podcast with your friend.
Exactly. That's true. That's very, very true. I don't like it to try and do an assessment, and I think we've talked about that before. But for meetings and for just catching up with people, it's great.
Yes.
So
I do a handful of dance classes this way still.
Ooh, cool.
Yeah. It's been one of the ways that I've been able to keep up with my Halal in Texas, actually, is Auntie Carol puts on Zoom classes for some of her older folks. So I get to join in on those, even though I'm states away, which is so nice. I just have to do the time differences in my brain.
Yeah, that time differences can make a big difference. It's really kind of weird how that works, but oh well. Yeah. So what are we going to talk about today?
Right. So today on our Assessor podcast, we forgot to do the intro. Hi, I'm Kaitlyn Reeder, and sometimes we do a cold open now. So how's that?
Look at us making things happen. And I'm Mei Beth Shepherd, the other host on this podcast.
Yeah.
So you want to be an assessor? That's the name of it. Yay.
We're professionals. So good at these.
Whatever.
You know.
And so today we're going to talk about documents, right?
Yes.
Let's talk about what are documents, what are records, what are forms, templates, different things. There's lots of different words that some people use for the same thing, right? Mm-hmm. So let's try and clarify some of that. I don't know that we're right, but
we definitely have opinions.
We have opinions. We're going to put them out there. That's what we're doing today, is talking about documents and forms. Most labs have documents and forms. I think everybody can agree on that. It's just which ones do you have to control, and what does control mean, and all that fun stuff. So let's what questions do you have, Kaitlyn?
Well, I know controlled documents require 4 things to be on every control document by the laboratory, and those are pagination, so the page numbers right at the top and or the bottom, with a end page number if there are multiple,
right? And so then, you know when you're at the end.
Yeah, exactly. If they were to fall out of order, you could put them back into order.
Exactly.
And know if you're missing one or not.
True statement, because you don't want to be missing page 5.
Yeah.
That's usually the one with the procedure on it, if it's an SOP.
Yeah.
So there's the page numbers.
The next one is the effective date or revision number, depending on what it is that you're using, how you document that sort of stuff. And I'm not the clearest on which one is better or which one works for you, but
I think a lot of it depends on what's your organization at your laboratory, because and sometimes those are 2 different pieces of information. There's the effective date, and then there's the version number. So those could be 2 separate pieces of information. The 2026 may be the version and effective date. I don't know. Of course, a whole year of effective date. I'm not sure that would be great, but and then what is it, right? It's what's the document? It needs its name.
It
Needs a
needs its
name.
name, a unique title, a unique number, a something to differentiate it from all the other somethings.
That's right, because there's lots of somethings running around, and you want to know which one you're talking about. So it needs a unique identifier.
And then the last piece is the issuing body, governing body, some sort of body to take responsibility.
Who's taking credit or claiming ownership of this? So you don't want a document in your system that has a logo from the competitor's lab. That's not usually a good thing. So for instance, just the logo from your laboratory can work as the identifier or what authority
Person.
The
You
document is released or whatever.
Put your name and the watermark in the corner for everything, or a little logo, or your
Lots of different ways to do that.
something.
So, yeah.
Just something.
Yeah. So that's what a controlled document means. When we say is it a controlled document, we are talking about those pieces of information are on each document.
Yes.
So, but then what kind of document are we talking about? Because there's a bunch of different ones that the lab uses. There's documents that are SOPs are a perfect example of a document. And there's forms. People can put forms and have put forms as appendices or whatever to their SOPs. Here's the SOP on how to do cyanide. And here's the form that is used to fill out or document all of the data for cyanide as an appendix or inclusion in the SOP. That's fine. You can certainly do that. The problem is that if and when you need to change that form because you realize that you have to put a balance ID line on it, or you need to put the lot number or the pH strips or, things like that. And you go, oh, darn, I have to change the form. If it's part of your SOP, you have to change your SOP. If it's in your SOP as an example form, and it's a separate standalone document, then you can change the standalone document without having to change your SOP. But then you're having to keep track of two different things. So your choice.
Yeah.
It can be done either way. But you do need to have forms also, even though they're 1 page long. Page numbering is not hard on them. Usually you have a little 1 somewhere on there. So it needs to have the effective date because you want to know when people are using the right form. Now, a lot of people will save a form as a template. I know I use Excel a lot. So I save the format that this goes here, there's this information, there's these columns of information, that this is the way it's laid out. That's all what I call a template. That's not an official term. It's a term that I use to just differentiate between the form, and so the template gets its own ID. And then people can print the template in batches and make it into a logbook. And the logbook would get its own ID too, or it could just be the paper, the page. It can stay electronic and get saved each time as it's got new data in it. In my mind, they become records when they have data filled in them, when they have something in them. It can get very confusing because I've had someone else come argue the exact opposite, that a record is the template, the document that you use, and then the document is the controlled document is after it gets data put in it. They're wrong. But in my mind, I get my own little world. It's perfect. So
Okay. So, just because, like, I have very few opinions on this, but I have had questions from laboratories like thrown at me. So, I want to pick your brain. Say I have like a refrigerator log, and I go every day and I write down my number, and that number now has data, but it's months on months on months of these stacks. That's a control that needs control information. It needs those 4 pieces.
the paper that's on the refrigerator, yes, absolutely. But that control information is probably the template information for the blank.
Gotcha.
Because it doesn't need to change every time you put new data in it.
Okay.
Right.
Cool.
So you have your template, the thing that people are going to fill stuff into, put it into, that needs control. Because you want to know when you've told them, oh yeah, you have to keep track of this too, or that so you want to know that there's a new version of that form and it has an effective date. But then all the data that gets put into it after that date, those are, in my mind, those are records. That's now data to support the lab.
Okay, got it. So
it needs to go on the template.
Yeah.
That has an effective date.
So like 2 months ago, my filled out sheet is now a record, and it has all the information on it, but it can now be put away, not necessarily next to the fridge anymore.
Right. It can be
archived.
There's that word. There's an archive word. And what's the difference between archive and just stored in a box, not on the refrigerator anymore?
Ooh, I know this one. You get to define it.
Yeah, exactly. It can be different for every laboratory. If it's not on the refrigerator anymore, it's not an active document or whatever, however you want to say it, which is what makes it so hard for coming up with these definitions, or for everybody getting on the same page. Because I know when we've done it, I'm going to talk like in words in a row. When we've done presentations before, we use the words that make sense to us. Like, to me, I use template, I use document, I use record in the way that we just talked about. A template is the blank form. The record is the filled out form. The document is the thing with all the control information on it. And so people come up to me afterwards and we'll be talking, and it's like obvious that their definitions of those words are different. And so they're like very confused so define it for your lab. Okay. So that everybody, at least at your laboratory, is talking with the same words, to help you navigate what's what.
We brought up archiving, which I had another question for, because I've been in labs where they have an archive log, as you should, for your archive data, and it will have absolutely nothing on it. It'll be a blank sheet of paper on the outside of the archive room. Does that log archive blank sheet of paper need to have those 4 controlled elements on it?
I would think so.
Okay.
It's a log. It's a piece of information supporting the laboratory.
Okay. Cool.
And so, yeah. And no, there's not a requirement that it have anything on it. Granted, there's not a requirement that you actually do testing. If you're accredited for pH and you never do it, that you don't have to have actual records of doing it unless it's a PT. So you have to have those twice a year. But
unless you're in California,
and then you only have to do it once a year. It's great. So there's not a requirement to have it filled out. There is a requirement to have a process or a procedure that you're going to use. So if you have a archive room, you mentioned a room, that's great. That's fine. Have a rule about who could go into the room and how often and what consists of needing to fill out the log. Do they have to fill out the log because they walked through the door? Do they have to fill out the log because they pulled a record, looked at it, put it right back? Do they have to, and those are just paper ones. There's also electronic archiving.
Oh boy.
And stuff. So have a policy, have a procedure, the way that it's done, handled, managed in your laboratory. Because again, it's not defined in the standard, the T&I standard. It's defined that you have to have a log. It's defined that you have to have a policy and a procedure for everything you do. Actually, somebody was looking for that the other day and they said it's not in there. I was like, yeah, it really kind of is. But it's not everything you do. That's a little too broad. You don't have to have a process for opening a door. For instance, a lot of people, use keys. Some of them use codes or whatever. So you don't have to have that as a policy or procedure, but all of the stuff to support your laboratory, all of the testing has to have a procedure, and the things to support the requirements in the standard have to have a procedure.
So that would be things like dishwashing, how to archive documents, maybe how to retrieve archived documents, all those little things that are part of the system but aren't the actual technical portions.
Yeah, it's kind of like when you're talking about equipment, you have support equipment, right? The oven doesn't necessarily do the test, depending on what the test is. But the water bath doesn't do the test. It's just an environment for the test to be run in. Hot blocks, lots of different things that are support equipment. And so they don't have the same rules on how to manage them that your instruments, like your GCMSs, for instance, have. You have to have a certain level of software and et cetera, and you have to have backups and things like that for your instruments, but you don't necessarily have to have that for your support equipment. So these are like support processes, policies.
I like that. I like that verbiage. It's support.
It's support. It's
great when you have it
to manage. Well, and I guess that for me, I would want to do it where there's been confusion. Okay, so it became obvious to laboratories or to organizations that they had to have a purchasing process after they get bigger than one or two people, and or bigger than one person, and they ended up with bills at the end of the month that they didn't know where they came from. It's like, oh, maybe we should make sure we have money before we spend it, or whatever. Is that just a life skill or is that a lab skill? But
I don't know, but they don't teach you that in school, so
they do not. No. But anyway, so it's the things like that. It's like usually once you have figured out that there's a problem, you may want to put a process or a procedure in place. Now, don't go overboard. Don't make it too hard. How many people have read an MPN chart for a most probable number for your wet chem? It's not wet chem.
Micro.
That's the one. Thank you.
Yeah.
But
I hadn't even seen one until I started doing this job.
right. And so it's not necessarily difficult to do that, but it can be misread. They can be misread. So we were in one lab, we were consulting. We weren't having to decide whether we were going to write a finding or not. But the laboratory had an internal audit issue where somebody was misreading the MPN chart. And the IDEX MPN chart for CoAlert is small.
It's tiny.
And it's really hard to read, especially if you've got eyes that don't work so well. Yeah. So they came up with a process and a procedure, which is totally appropriate. They should have. They needed to do a corrective action on this. But their process and procedure was so far overboard. They required a square. How many people go to, Home Depot, Lowe's, whatever, and get a square that is a ruler that goes both directions, that's connected at a 90-degree angle? There was a identified square that had to be used to read the MPN chart.
Wow.
And it's like, well, congratulations on making a procedure. I think that's a little overkill. So don't write yourself into procedure hell. That's not fun for anybody.
No, that's crazy. I mean, very inventive.
Yeah.
Good job on them. However, that seems a little excessive when you can just do a sheet of paper and a sheet of paper to cover it until you need to get to whatever number you're looking at.
Exactly. You already had the paper there. Or nowadays, with that particular problem, there's an online version, and you just enter the number of large cells and you enter the number of small cells, and it pops up a number, and you write that number down.
Which is really cool. They realized they had a problem when it was in 9-point font.
9-point font, exactly. In order to get it so that it would print on two sides of one page.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, so we're at about time. Are there other document control or document record form topic things we should talk about? I think we covered a lot.
I think we covered a lot, and we covered a lot of the questions that I tend to have, because a lot of the template stuff where you're writing physical numbers is fairly easy to be like, that needs to be controlled, and then it needs to be a record. Some of the more quality control logs and quality stuff is a little bit harder to define, at least for me and for some labs. So it was really nice getting that clarification. So thank you.
Yes. You are not the only one that gets those questions.
Yeah.
Well, and good news, bad news is standard doesn't explicitly say you have to do it X way. So good news is you don't have to do it X way. But bad news is you don't have to do it a particular way. So you have to come up with a way. You have to get on the same page with everybody else at your lab. So I do like that about the standard. I like the fact that the standard says, you have to have a purchasing process.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care what it is. Yeah, if the purchasing process is don't spend more than you make, then
okay.
I am not someone who can tell you that's a sucky process. Probably your first corrective action that where you spent more than you made will tell you that that's a sucky process. But that you have one. That's all that's
have
required.
A process.
That's all that's required. So yeah. Anyway.
As
right.
always, if you like what we're doing here, please like and subscribe. Leave comments down below. We will be posting another method deep dive. I know I had hinted at paint filter and color and some of those other, paragraph style easier methods that we write a surprising amount of findings to. So
amazing. It's
stay
crazy.
tuned for that.
Yeah. All right. So wonderful. We'll see you next time.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming by.